We are going to install this camera system, front and reverse camera, onto a tractor. This is a Kubota M7060 with cab, but the installation process should be similar for just about any tractor. Getting started, this is a row hint camera system. It's designed for, they say, an RV or a semi-truck, but we're gonna use it on a tractor. There's a bunch of cables, there's a hardwire kit. This goes to a cigarette lighter, a couple cameras, a bracket for mounting the monitor, and the monitor sun glare screen. I'm going to start off by testing all this tech before I go about getting it installed. This is all made overseas, and I have a suspicion about quality just based on the instruction manuals and the typos in that. But so far everything seems to be working, so I'm going to go ahead and install them. I'm going to put my first camera in location. This is the reverse camera, and this is where I want it to be on the tractor. Nice and high so I get kind of a bird's eye view on everything. Ooh, I just about got knocked off the ladder by that window. And now I'm seeing if the window is going to clear the camera, and unfortunately it's not going to clear the camera in that location. So I've got to come up with something different. So let's move on to the front camera. I'm using some double-sided stick tape. I attach that to the base of the camera, and I'm just temporarily fastening the camera in place on the brush guard. This camera, I specifically want to kind of look at my loader mounts so that hooking on implements will be a little bit easier. And I put that on the first bar up on the brush guard all the way to the back so that hopefully it doesn't get hit by brush. And then of course I'm testing and making sure that position isn't going to interfere with the movement of the brush guard or of the hood. And I think that's going to be just okay. Now moving on to the cab, I need to get the wires into the cab somehow. So I wrinkled the mat back out of the way. I couldn't quite take it off because when they installed the loader, they punched a hole in the mat and they took all the wires for the loader up through there. And I didn't want to cut that. So I just have it rolled up in a corner right now. And I'm getting to this metal kick panel that I think will shelter all the wires running through the body of the tractor. Yep, it looks like they use that as a conduit run. And this is the grommet I want to get into. It was an interesting way they did that. That is a big rubber grommet. It's sealed to the body with silicone, I believe. And then it's kind of like a top hat grommet with a top hat snipped off and then taped to that automotive loom that comes through there. It was a very secure joint. Got that tape undone, and then I stuffed the large cable through. It's a small cable, but there's a large fitting on the end, which is kind of difficult when you're getting into tight spots, and it was a tight squeeze to get it through that grommet. But I did get it through in the end. Now, this grommet, it pops out underneath the tractor, and you can just see, if you look for it right there, that's the wire. That wire needs to run up all the way to the front camera. The battery is located in the front on this tractor, so there's a big piece of loom running from the cab to the battery, and I just followed that with my wire and zip tied to it. And my hope is that by staying with that wire, it's not going to get too hot anywhere and damage the wire. Now I'm removing the head panel so I can get in to run my wire for the reverse camera. This headliner is held on by a dizzying amount of screws. But at last I got them, oh, never mind. I got all but one out. Okay, now they're all out. And now this should all descend nicely, which it does. I think I will just have room to do what I'm hoping to do. I'm going to need a few more supplies, so I got those ordered. This is a clamp mount to a ball, and this is a ball to the mount for the monitor. I'll try and link all of these down in the description, and then I also got a box of grommets. Rohint makes a suction cup mount. It has poor reviews, and it's going to be hard to turn around like this. This ball mount came out really nice. We have this rail right here on the tractor, so I'm going to mount the clamp to that directly, and then I'll snap the ball in on the monitor, and it should make for a really clean install. All right, there's the monitor. Now I'm drilling a hole for the wire for the back camera. And this is where that big clip on the wire really is too bad, because the wire itself would barely need any hole at all, but the clip needs a rather big one to get in. So I drilled that hole out until that clip just fit through. And then using a deburring tool, I deburred the outside and the inside until it was nice and smooth. That hole I just drilled gives me access from the outside into the roof, but not into the cab. So I pulled the headliner down pretty far and I drilled a hole from the cab into the roof. And now I should be able to fish the wire. Here's the hole from the cab. You can see that orange glow from the orange roof. And that's what I'm seeing on the outside too. So now I just need to fish that wire somehow. I told you the window didn't clear the camera, and this is my workaround for that. This camera has 2 screws and 2 slots in the mounting bracket, and I just removed both screws and slid the camera further into the bracket and used the top camera screw hole in the bottom bracket hole, and that worked out really good. It shortened the camera just far enough, and now the window clears it. Then I took a grommet, drilled the hole in it, and tried to pass this camera cable through. And I realized that just wasn't going to cut it. So I decided I needed to cut it. So I cut that rubber grommet, and then I can slip it right over the camera cable, and I think that's going to work perfectly. Okay, there's the cable. Then I grab some more double-sided stick tape, and I'm going to temporarily attach the camera up here as well, just like we did for the front camera. And another test to make sure that it clears this time, and it does. It sure is close, but it counts. Now to run the wire, I am going to use this very useful tool. I'm going to go through that panel, expand the tool, grab the wire, and pull it back out. At least that's what I hope to do. Hopefully without pulling off the head panel in the process. This window is in the way very much so for this next step, so I'm pulling the pins. I already removed the gas strut, and then the whole window just comes off. Okay, that's our concrete. We got the wire fished in the meantime, and now you can see the wire dangling down inside the cab, and I'm just getting the grommet installed. That grommet was a very tight fit, but once it was finally up in there, it looks so nice. That looks pretty factory if I say it myself. Now I'm making the attachment, and then it's time to reinstall the head panel. There's a lot of wires in here, and they all have their own idea of where they want to go back. So I ended up putting a screw in one end, and then I could kind of go around pushing the wires back into their places. Then I came back and I put in all the screws. And I'm realizing as I watch this video again, I forgot to pull these wires out, I guess. There was a wire and a kind of clear pipe. I'm pretty sure that's for an optional rear wiper blade. I don't think that's an option we'll ever be putting on this tractor, but just good to know they're up in the headliner if we ever want them. I want to route this wire as cleanly as possible so that you really don't notice it in the tractor. So I pulled that screw by the, I guess you would call it a console maybe, and I'm running it underneath that little tab of plastic. I do like how they did this. There's only one wire that goes to the monitor, and then that wire branches out into 3 lines. One goes to power. Actually, you have 2 wires, one to power, one to ground, and then you have 2 for your camera channels. And that's really nice because I'm able to route the single wire from the monitor down into the cab floor, and I can make all my junctions in the cab floor, and you don't see a bunch of wires going directly into the monitor. This mat has been in the way for an annoyingly long time, so I just made probably an inch cut, maybe only half an inch, And I should have done that a long time ago. It is so much easier to work in this cab with the map out, and you really can't even tell it's been cut. All right, here's a pretty good view of my head, but what's going on inside of my head is how to get this rapid tap onto this wire. I've singled out the wire that controls the cigarette lighter in this fuse box, and I want to connect it to the cigarette lighter circuit because the cigarette lighter is off with key off and on with key on, which is exactly what I want for this camera system. So I found the wire I wanted to tap, and I tapped it with a rapid tap, and now I'm putting a connector on this little itsy bitsy wire that supplies the camera system with power. And this was a really small wire. I used the smallest spade connector I had. Now I'm taking the ground wire, I attached a terminal to that, and I'm grounding it to one of the screws on the fuse box. And test early and often. I'm testing, there's that blue light coming on, good. Give it power, it definitely has power. No signal from the cameras, which is the way it should be because those aren't hooked up yet. And now those cameras are hooked up. I'm testing again, there's the reverse camera, good, we have signal. There's the front camera, okay, not the right orientation, but we do have signal, so that's good. Now I'm just neatening everything up there. I like to use the twist ties that come with the cables to wrap them up again, and I'm stuffing all this cordage down into the floor. It's a lot of cordage, they were really long cords. But it all came out nice in the end. Wait, I just made a big mistake. And it means I need to undo some of my work, but it's kind of a dangerous mistake I made. There is no fuse protecting this wire. Yeah, there's a fuse for the cigarette lighter that I tapped into, but that's a 15 amp fuse. And this wire is not going to be able to handle anywhere close to 15 amps. Of that I'm certain. So I am adding an inline fuse holder, and I'll add an inline fuse. That way I don't risk having an electrical fire. I rigged up some alligator clamps to hold my two wires together, which was a big help. Then I just soldered that, slid my heat shrink over that, and now I'm using a lighter to activate my heat shrink. I put a spade connector on one end of the inline fuse, and now that goes from the fuse panel to an inline fuse to the monitor. And that's a much better setup, it's a lot safer. I bought these little adhesive blocks that take a zip tie, and I'm using that to hold this wire nice and tight to the A pillar all the way down. And then that wire runs under the carpet panel on the right hand side, and I'm just making sure that's all arranged so that it can't get pinched. And then it's time to put everything back together. And I know we're working on a Kubota today, so you Kubota guys, here is the line you can use to torment your diehard John Deere friends. Nothing runs like a deer being chased by a Kubota. That wraps up the cab. Now we're going to mount the rear camera. I'm going to mount the rear camera with pop rivets. I drill a couple holes, and I pop rivet into the plastic panel. And since we have one screw, I'm going to take it out, put some medium thread locker on that, and tighten it down really hard. And that should keep the camera from pivoting. Then I'm going to peel this sticker off the top because I don't want a sticker saying now it's time to mount the front revicing cam. I mark a couple of holes where I'd like it to go, and then I drill those holes out, and I'll use pop rivets again up here. You may have noticed I've already mounted the cable to the brush guard with zip ties. And it looks like I've left enough there. I'm just double checking that I have enough cable to run the brush guard and the hood, and I do. You can see when everything's shut, there's a little slack cable, but not enough that's sticking out and might be caught on a piece of brush, at least, hopefully. Now I'm putting the rear window back on. I slide the pins in, and then I attach the gas strap. And one quick little test to make sure it clears the camera still, and it does. And then I'm coming back with some silicone and a little fine stick, and I'm just applying it to that grommet around the wire to discourage any water from ever coming in. And then I add a 2 amp fuse in the fuse holder. Finally, I peel the film off the monitor, and there's a little bit of film over this Rohint logo as well, so I'll peel that. And I'll attach the visor. Okay, there's the front camera. I went to the menu and I rotated the camera until it came to the right orientation. And this is the back one, and it was already set up just fine. There's one more window test, and there's my hand shutting the window. That wraps up the camera install on this tractor. Let's get it outside and see how the camera system works. Ben is in the tractor right now. We're picking up the bell spear, and this is the front camera. Sorry for the shaky footage. I'm filming sitting in the buddy seat, and the buddy seat on this tractor is half cup holder and half armrest. And here Dad is running the blade, and this reverse camera is so handy. You can see, it's hard to tell on the screen of the monitor because when you take a picture of a picture, it just doesn't do it justice. But you can see really well on this monitor. You can see how much dirt you have. You can see about how far away you are from the ground, how close you are to trees. It is really useful, and you don't have to be constantly turning your head back to look at your 3rd-point implement. You can also back right into your implement slots without looking around or getting out of the cab, and that's very handy as well. I hope you found this video helpful. I'm going to link to some of the products I used in the description below, but if you have any questions about any part of this install, please leave a comment. I don't know what our next video is going to be about. That's one fun part of being a welding and fabrication job shop. You don't know what's going to be coming in, but I'm almost certain it's going to be something fun. Come join us. Subscribe.